My name is Ian Glover and I'm president of CREST. CREST is a not-for-profit organisation working in the technical IT security area, and we accredit organisations and certify individuals, really with the view to try to build capacity and capability in the marketplace and also to try and professionalise the industry. I came into the technology industry really because of my love for space. At the time when I was young, the Apollo program was landing men on the moon. The idea of landing a man on the moon in an accurate position using computer power I just thought was quite incredible. At the same time, there's a great deal of talk about technology replacing individuals in the workplace, and really I wanted to make sure that I had longevity in terms of my career. I entered the IT industry, really leaving school. My careers advice at that point was if I got a job I should leave, and if I didn't I should stay on. Fantastic. And really that's some of the reason why we've tried to give so much back to helping people have better careers advice. My first job was working for a publisher's, and that was really their first ever computer system. It was looked at trying to automate the process of understanding what stock they had in terms of their books and also running their payroll and some of their administration systems. I was the computer department. I worked very hard to try to make sure I completely understood everything, and I started to go to evening classes to understand more about communications and information technology. I was then very lucky because a job came up in the Ministry of Defence, and I went to work for the Defence Operational Analysis Establishment. We were trying to work towards building statistical and stochastical models for battle simulation, but I went in as a computer operator. The reason why I went there was that they gave me the opportunity to pay for my college work, and also they gave me almost unlimited access to computer power. At that point it was very difficult to find access to computers, but as a computer operator really I used to code all night. I used to correct people's code if it was wrong, and I used to leave if I wanted to go on overtime, and then I used to leave it to fail if I wanted to go home. So in actual fact the operators had a great deal of power, but really that access to unlimited computing and the ability to play in coding was really a real joy. At the same time as doing all of my college work overnight, it was a fabulous thing to do. I started to find that people in coding were sort of being progressed faster than I was because I was in operations, and so I decided what I wanted to do is to go into software development. In order to do that within the government at that time you needed a degree, which is something I didn't have. I saved quite a lot of money and I said to the government I was going to leave, and they said, why don't you apply for a bursary? I didn't know what one of those was, but really that was the government helping finance me to go through my degree course. Again, I think that was a career-changing opportunity that they provided with me, and one again some of the reason why I try to give things back. I went to Brunel University to study systems and information management, but really I was working at the same time, really interested in artificial intelligence, and what I was trying to do was to apply artificial intelligence techniques to some of the statistical models and also to some of the logistics. I also started to look at things like unexploded bombs, where we'd identify a bomb that was unexploded, and there were certain attributes, and we tried to build artificial intelligence systems to identify what they were to make them safer to diffuse. In addition to that, I was also looking at secure operations, as well as doing coding and development activities. I was then very fortunate, after I finished my degree, I was offered a job at something called CCTA, which at the time was called the Central Computer and Telecommunications Agency. A fabulous place that looked at common good activities and really was driving the technology areas within government, and a lot of the techniques and processes they developed were moved out into the private sector. Things like prompt and print for project management, SSADM and some of the agile techniques for system development. I had some fantastic projects. I worked on the first ever NETOP for the UK government. Obviously it's now called a laptop, but it was really the idea of mobility within government at that time. But really what I wanted to do was to move into the artificial intelligence area. And that's very fortunate is what I did. We were looking at standards, we were working with a number of different programming languages to try and work out how we could use artificial intelligence at that time, or I prefer the term augmented intelligence, to help government to make decisions. At that time there was some interest in terms of looking at developing risk management techniques both in the UK and in the US, and I was very fortunate again to be involved in that particular project. What we did from that is we used some of the techniques, the idea of having a knowledge-based and an inference engine to build risk analysis tools. One of those was called a product called CRAM, which was rolled out throughout the UK government, but also was sold internationally and also to private sector organisations. After that, I then tried to make a decision about what I wanted to do with the rest of my career within government. They wanted to promote me and move me into policy, but I really wanted to stay in technology. So I went to ask advice and was told my best advice would be to leave. I left the government with a very heavy heart really, because I actually felt like the government could make a difference and some of the work we're doing was really fascinating. I then went to work for Ernst & Young, really at the early stages of some of their cybersecurity, and really to try to help to set up some of the organisation structures that were necessary to deliver that type of professional services to both government departments and private sector. I really enjoyed my time working for the Big Four, but felt somewhat stifled in terms of how we could develop that type of service provision, particularly within the context of a sort of partnership in that sort of way. I got together with some friends of mine and we established an organisation called Insight Consulting. Really, that was one of the first organisations to look at being a particular boutique type organisation providing IT security, or what's now known as cybersecurity services. We took that from 0 to around about 150 consultants providing penetration testing, advisory in terms of standards, controls and policies and procedures, education programs. We used to do quite a lot in terms of identity and access management and provisioning as well. We also had a training organisation and a recruitment and contracting company. We took that to a level where we could understand how to run that particular business, and then the opportunity came to sell. We sold it to Siemens. There was an awful lot of interest in the organisation at that time. We viewed Siemens as being a really interesting place because it would help us to develop the company, move it on and move it further. We worked within Siemens for around about 5 years. I was placed on the board for EMEA for Siemens Communications, but really I was responsible for the professional service element and tried to make sure that security was put into their large managed services and also their communications and delivery products. I then made the decision that I was going to retire. I retired for around about 5 days, which was probably 3 days longer than my wife thought I'd manage. At the same time, we've been working within CREST to establish this as being really a professional body, but moving towards sort of a trade association. It needed some drive forward to try to make that type of activity happen. So I joined CREST as their president and really have tried to drive that process forward in terms of the professionalisation of the industry. I've been doing that for 10 years and I enjoy every day. A typical day for CREST is a very difficult thing to establish because it is so varied, and that's one of the joys and one of the reasons why I've stayed in this industry so long. Really, my work breaks down into a number of different areas. I provide direct support to organisations that want to get into the cybersecurity industry or want to understand how to grow or become a CREST member, in other words, mature their services. I think that's a really important thing, particularly if we're going to scale up organisations in this particular area. In addition to that, I also work with the individuals, trying to provide careers advice and trying to make sure that there is a career structure there that allows the individuals to grow. We combine those two elements together, that support with the organisations that are providing services, as well as the support with the individuals, and I work very closely to develop schemes on behalf of regulators, government departments, and really sectorial related activities. Again, this takes me around the world, which is both a joy and a problem, but it's a really interesting and it's actual fact trying to make a difference in this area to try to professionalise it and grow those areas. I then work on some of the research projects. One of the joys about working in CREST is we can be collaborative, we can pull the industry together to come out with an industry view, and so those research projects are really interesting. And then finally, I help organisations and individuals in terms of their professional development. I work quite a lot with schools on their careers programs. I work quite a lot within the universities to help them on careers talks and ethics, as well as some of their syllabus areas. I've worked with the higher apprenticeship programs in terms of both the development and the rollout of that. And then I'm working with organisations to develop career pathways based on certification and training pathways that will allow individuals to understand how they get into the industry, to show what a fantastic place it is to work, but also then provide them with a career structure that allows them to have longevity within the industry. The things I really like about my job is the variety and the ability to make a difference. I really think that cybersecurity makes a difference, and I really think that to try to professionalise that and grow the industry itself actually makes a significant difference to both the community that we work within, but the wider community as well. That's really one of the joys, and that flexibility in terms of having a wide range of different things to think about is really a fantastic opportunity for me, and one of the things I really love about working in this industry and this particular role. There's very little I don't actually like about my job, but if you looked at it from a critical perspective, it's sometimes the lack of control about my personal time, because there are so many draws on it from different countries, different sectors, different organisations and different individuals. Really what I'd like to do is to have 3 times as much time than I actually do, because I don't want to not do these things, but really to try to do time management and actually have a balance in terms of life is one of the difficult things. But the reason why I continue to do this is really the joy of what I'm trying to do and the fact that I love the industry and I love my job. If I was giving somebody some advice about how to join the cybersecurity industry, I would say you've got to do a lot of research first. Cybersecurity covers a wide breadth of different activities, everything from deep dive technology through to education and awareness programs, through standards and implementation of controls. So really you've got to think about the areas in which you'd like to operate and the areas that you'd like to concentrate on, and then try to look at the jobs that are available. Within CREST, we've tried to do quite a lot in terms of providing career pathway documentations and career guides. Again, you can download those from our website. There's also something called Inspired Careers, www.inspiredcareers.org, and that has got a number of day-in-the-life videos, including this one, which will give you some indication about the types of jobs that are available within the industry and the types of things you should consider in terms of moving in. If you want to go into the technology area of cybersecurity, I would absolutely look at the relevant certifications that will move you forward into those areas. To have qualifications and have recognition in things like penetration testing and intrusion analysis is really the way forward. So what you need to do is to gear your perspective in terms of how you can get a job in this area by demonstrating your interest in it. But really what you then need to do is to have a career pathway based on some of the certificates. If you wanted to go into some of the other areas, then absolutely you need to look again in terms of the types of jobs that are available and orientate yourself towards actually achieving them and standing out above the crowd in terms of demonstrating you've got a real interest. I think real interest and the ability to actually understand what's going on and have a real passion for making a difference and having the flexibility to change are going to be the things that, if you can bring those into our industry, are going to be most valued.